It looks really, like, glowy.
These lines, I can hardly see them. My skin just looks younger.
The best results I've ever seen.
New No. 7 Protect and Perfect Advanced Serum.
I think I may have got my sparkle back.
Clinically proven to be even more effective at reducing the appearance of lines and wrinkles. No. 7. Ta-da!
I typed my name and date of birth, and my journey across the ages began. My ancestry tree guided me through the landmarks of my past, and to a face I felt I knew.
Discovering how your ancestors made their living has never been easier. Explore the world's largest online collection of family history records. Simply type in a name at ancestry.co.uk. Who will you discover?
This is the weekend where dreams become reality, and England welcomes in a new dawn, where the tour comes home, and the streets come alive, where there's a first and last chance for European glory, and city rivals fight to be crowned champions. The ultimate weekend, live on Sky Sports. To upgrade to Sky Sports, call this number.
You're watching Sky News. A reminder of our top stories here this afternoon. The Governor of the Bank of England has warned that the UK's economic recovery is at risk because of the deep structural problems in the housing market. The US Coast Guard has suspended its search for 4 British sailors who went missing in the mid-Atlantic. And the Labour and Liberal Democrat leaders have condemned comments made by UKIP's Nigel Farage about Romanian men. Well, the row over Nigel Farage's comments comes just 4 days from polling day in the European and local elections. And to discuss how the parties are doing, I'm joined now from Westminster by the Labour List columnist Emma Burnell, Director of Conservative Grassroots Ben Harris-Quinney. He joins us from Ware in Hertfordshire. And here with me in the studio is the editor of Lib Dem Newswire, Mark Pack, and UKIP campaigner Michael Heaver. So a very good evening to all of you. Emma Burnell, I'm going to start with you first of all. The polls don't look terribly good for any of the main parties, it has to be said at this stage. But don't you think that Labour should be particularly worried at this stage of the Parliament? Wouldn't you expect the main opposition party to be doing better with the general election just a year away?
I think that the UKIP surge has had an effect on all the parties, but I do think it's quite extraordinary that the focus is on whether Labour is going to second or first, not on whether the Conservatives are going to come third for the first time in a national election in their history.
OK, well, let's put that to the Conservatives then. Ben Harris-Quinney, it would be a bit of a disaster, wouldn't it, if the Conservatives came third, wouldn't it?
I don't think it would be a disaster, and indeed I think that's what a lot of Conservatives are expecting. I think it's a shame for a lot of the great Conservative candidates that are genuine Conservatives and actually hold a lot of the views and policy that some of the UKIP rhetoric has been around. So I think it's a shame if a lot of those guys lose their seats. But nonetheless, the Conservative Party is expecting third place, and really it's all about what happens in 2015, and on that I think we've received both some very positive economic results but also some very positive polling results in the last few weeks.
Well, Ben Harris-Quinney, both you and Emma Burnell have already mentioned UKIP in your first answers, talking about your current position. If UKIP is the main threat, why have the main parties failed to neutralise their message?
Well, I think that's largely because there is a strong sense that politics itself is failing. I think that that's partly because of the rhetoric that's coming out of government in terms of economic fix that people aren't feeling. I would hope that people sense that my party are there to fix that, but at the moment that's not where we are. And certainly the European elections has often been seen as a place to really send a message to the whole of Westminster, and that includes the Labour Party, and that's a message we should listen to too. So this may well be why the UKIP, which is in many ways a plague on all your houses vote, is becoming so high at this election.
OK, I'm just going to bring in, we've just heard from Nigel Farage, actually, in the last few minutes, commenting on the comments that he made in a radio interview about living next door to Romanians. He's been accused by party leaders Nick Clegg and Ed Miliband of making offensive comments. Let's listen to his response this evening.
Well, the question I was asked is, how would you feel if a group of Romanian men moved in next door to you, or German children? So it's a slightly odd question. The point I'm making is this. If we had with Romania a proper work permit scheme with the necessary checks, then nobody would be concerned about Romanian men moving in next door to them. The problem that we've got, I'm afraid, is that Romania is a post-communist country that has not made a full transition to being a Western democracy. It treats its own minorities absolutely appallingly, and there is an organised crime problem.
So that was Nigel Farage picking up on those comments he made a few days ago, which have brought him a great deal of criticism. Michael Heaver, you're from the youth wing of UKIP. What did you think of what he had to say? Do you think that he was being racist?
Well, of course it's attracted criticism from the establishment politicians. They're pro-open door immigration. I mean, Nigel Farage is speaking at an event tonight in Margate to 1,400 people on a Sunday evening. You know, UKIP and Nigel Farage are changing British politics because they are saying things and doing things that the other parties simply won't address. And you can say UKIP simply a plague in all your houses. No, I don't agree with that, actually. The majority of UKIP voters vote for UKIP because they want to leave the EU, they want to have a border system, that we haven't got an open door with countries like Romania and Bulgaria that have high levels.
But do you think it's
organised crime.
acceptable for him to say, I don't like the idea of living next door to Romanians? That's been described by Ed Miliband as being a racial slur.
No, that's not what he said. What he said was if there was a group of Romanian men that moved in next door, there may be some concerns. If it was a family,
and do you think that's
it'd be a
okay
different
to
matter.
say that?
Well, when it's 92% of ATM crime now in London, and this is the Met's figures, is committed by Romanian gangs, I think there's real concern there. And what we want in this country, and none of the other parties want to actually talk about the EU in this European election debate, but Nigel Farage, he stood up in that debate with Nick Clegg and actually laid out UKIP support for controlling immigration.
Okay.
It had massive support in the country. I'm sorry, but the establishment politicians are completely out of touch, along with much of the media on this.
OK, Mark Pack, you're here to represent the Lib Dems then, if you like. Pick up on what we were hearing just
I think
then.
Nigel Farage's comments were absolutely appalling. It was quite clear that he was objecting to people purely on the basis of being Romanian. And if you say there are some things about how Romania as a country is run that you don't like and therefore you don't want to live next to them, well, what does that mean if there was somebody fleeing from oppression in Africa or in the Soviet Union or another country around the world? Would Nigel Farage have turned around and said, oh no, I don't like those people because of how their country's run? It's absolutely dreadful comments by him. And for all his denials about, oh, I'm not a racist, it's very clear what vote he's pitching for with comments like that.
So if you believe that, how is it that the main parties that you three here are representing tonight aren't able to divert the message away from UKIP? Why does it seem to be that UKIP seem to be setting the agenda in a lot of ways ahead of this election?
I mean, I think the comments Emma made earlier were absolutely spot on, which is that all the main political parties face big challenges in terms of coming over to the public as being popular or credible at the moment, and therefore UKIP is the party that at the moment is hoovering up an awful lot of that vote, which is really dissatisfaction with our political system as a whole.
And dissatisfaction with Lib Dems, just to stick with you a little bit longer, the latest poll suggests that even the Greens will overtake the Lib Dems at this upcoming election, which put them into 5th place. I mean, what does that say about Lib Dems' future?
Well, I mean, the Liberal Democrats in the past haven't had the opportunity to be unpopular in power, so certainly being in power and being able to actually implement Liberal Democrat policies sort of week in, week out in government is much better than the alternative. But as you said, it's going to clearly be a tough set of elections.
Michael Heaver, while UKIP are doing very well in the polls ahead of the election on Thursday, the big question for them is whether they can translate a good turnout for them at the general election in a year's time. In the past, they haven't been able to do that. Why do you think it might be different this time round?
Well, I mean, one of the big things with UKIP is people seem to keep going back and saying, well, it's just a protest vote. No. People are electing UKIP councillors, over 140 of them last year. They're electing councillors at a local level and building local bases for the party on the issues, on immigration, on things of this nature. This is what people really care about.
But in the past, that support has fallen away come the general election, and UKIP don't have any MPs. How many MPs will they get in the general election, do you think?
Well, let's wait and see. But, I mean, 2010 compared to now, it's a completely different world in politics. UKIP is now polling between 15 and 20% in general election polling. And, you know, the other parties can't offer border controls. They can't offer controlled immigration. They can't offer leaving the EU. They can't offer grammar schools. They can't offer any of that. And that's what people vote UKIP for.
Ben Harris-Quinney, how worried are the Tories, do you think, about those UKIP voters who may come out in these European local elections and vote UKIP, but not going back to the Tories come the general election?
Only 60% will stay with UKIP for 2015. But the point is that UKIP are not going to become a party of government in 2015. They'd be very lucky to even get a single MP. So at that point, the country as a whole is going to have to decide really who they want to be in government, the Conservatives or Labour. And I think when faced with that decision, a lot of people will plump for the Conservatives. I don't think UKIP are a problem. I think UKIP are actually a great thing that is pushing conservatism as a movement forward in the country. If you look at the polls in general, UKIP is a Conservative party, the Conservative Party is a Conservative party, and they're polling together over 50%. So I hope there can be some accommodation between the two parties. But either way, whether that accommodation is made between the two parties or it's made by the public at large, a decision will have to ultimately be made between the Conservatives and Labour.
OK, and finally, Emma Burnell, to you last of all. I mean, obviously, the election certainly isn't, either this one or the one in a year's time, just about immigration, just about UKIP. It's going to be about the economy as well and how rich people feel. To what extent do you think that Labour's cost of living message might be neutered if the economy keeps on improving?
I think the problem we have is that the economy is improving, but it's not improving for most people. And I think that is really key. What's happened is that the natural economic cycle has come back, and we've done nothing to change the way the economy impacts on ordinary people's lives. So, in fact, the Conservatives have fixed the economy message feels very complacent in areas where I live, like East London, where we are not feeling the benefit.
OK, well, we must leave it there. So much more we could discuss, and we'll have plenty of opportunities over the weeks and months ahead, of course. Emma Burnell, thank you very much to you. Ben Harris-Quinney, thanks as well. Mark Pack here in the studio with me, as well as Michael Heaver. Thanks, all of you.